Hey guys, Ryan Young, Kama Jiu-Jitsu, and I hope you're doing well. So today what I wanted to do was answer a question with a video. And the question that I want to answer was, I get it, here and there. You guys see our YouTube channel and you understand our whole philosophy about Jiu-Jitsu and Rickson Gracie Jiu-Jitsu and the differences between what we do and what other Jiu-Jitsu practitioners do. And I always get the question that comes in, do you have a location here? Or will you have a location there? Or when do you plan to be in our area? Or when is Dave gonna come out for the next seminar? All those kind of questions, how to get us local to you. One way to do it is through affiliate academies. The problem with affiliate academies is that it's hard to get people that do what you teach and do it faithfully and have it spread out in volume. We could spread the name Kama Jiu-Jitsu all over the place if we wanted to. That's not difficult to do. The problem with it is that they won't be teaching Kama Jiu-Jitsu. They'll be teaching Jiu-Jitsu, but not Kama Jiu-Jitsu, which is Rickson Gracie's Jiu-Jitsu. Unfortunately, there aren't that many people that actually learned Rickson Gracie's Jiu-Jitsu, the whole system. People have bits here and there. They might have seen Rickson at seminars, or they might have taken some privates with him here and there, or, even if they see him once a year. It's not the same as being in there with him day in and day out. For better or for worse, there aren't that many schools that teach it. So one of the ways that we can branch out is to find people who run schools and who want to affiliate with us. But then we have to kind of go through another process. So I wanted to introduce you to our second affiliate. Our first one's in Hawaii, in Honolulu, and our second is in Sierra Vista, Arizona. Now, Sierra Vista, Arizona, that is Tony Torres, and he runs his school called Defense Lab. And it's defense with a C, by the way, just letting you know. And he's got a wide breadth of experience in martial arts, but his focus is self-defense. And he'll be going into it with you, kind of explaining how he does what he does. But he's also an old school jiu-jitsu guy, which you'll find out as well. So what I wanted to just introduce you to him and let us know if you have any questions. Tony, here we go.
Well, I first introduced Jiu-Jitsu back in 1993. The instructor that I was teaching was an assistant instructor at Frank Cucci's school, and he brought in Master Pedro Sauer. At the time, he was only a second-degree black belt, and I was involved in so many other martial arts at the time that I kind of took a superficial liking to Jiu-Jitsu. So while some of my friends were going to class 4 days a week, I was only doing it like once every other week, etc. I was a police officer at the time. I was very busy in different specialty units and teaching at the academy. So my time was compressed. So I didn't have the what I would believe would be the right appreciation for Jiu-Jitsu until many years into the journey. So I was a white belt for a long, long time. And legitimately, I was not progressing. I was not learning enough on Jiu-Jitsu, but I was exposed at the time to what most people consider old school Jiu-Jitsu or old school Gracie Jiu-Jitsu, which was the Jiu-Jitsu that was being used for self-defense, for the challenge matches, for the Valetudo, etc. So that was my exposure. At least I was being exposed to good Jiu-Jitsu. From there, my career, I went on to, I was in the military for 9 years before that. I went on, after I got out of the police department, I went on to work for Blackwater. I did in Iraq. I was working for different companies, teaching self-defense, defensive tactics, and combatives to military units and to police units. About 8 years ago, in 2010, I finally decided that it was time for me to get serious about Jiu-Jitsu. So I started investing more time and started training under the Pedro Sauer Association at the time, and trained for many years and achieved my purple belt. For some reasons that really don't matter at this point, I saw that the philosophy that my particular instructor at the time was following was not aligning with my core values and what I was looking for in my training. I kind of became a jiu-jitsu rogue for a while. Me and my lowly purple belt skills were training my guys as best as I could, keeping it as real as I could. And in my search through the internet, I finally started hitting on your videos sometime last year in 2017. And I started communicating with you as well. And I realized that the way you're teaching jiu-jitsu aligned perfectly with what my goals are and what I wanted to achieve for my students at the time. And I decided to take that step and fly over to Texas and see what Rickson Gracie's Jiu-Jitsu is all about through the Kama Jiu-Jitsu schools. So basically, currently I'm the U.S. representative and the director of training for Defense Lab and Defense Lab Tactical. Again, it's a particular organization that looks at modern self-defense, self-protection issues and tries to offer solutions for those. And jiu-jitsu, especially Kama Jiu-Jitsu, as taught by Ryan and Master Dave Kama, which is Rickson Gracie's Jiu-Jitsu, absolutely is a skill that is necessary for anybody that's seriously considering what real self-defense is all about. Pretty much everybody in the Defense Lab organization that's ranked in any position of importance, we're all ranked in jiu-jitsu with some instructor or another because we see the importance of jiu-jitsu. And I think that if you're not considering the encompassing philosophy of jiu-jitsu, which is how to fight efficiently, making the other guy waste his energy while you're using your energy as efficiently as possible. That's completely in alignment with what a police officer would need, a soldier would need in a specific fight. To me, jiu-jitsu means the efficient way or the efficient art. And, anybody that's in a profession like that needs to be efficient with their fighting skills.
One thing that, and the reason why I asked you to bring this up was because when you were kind of going over with me a little bit of what you teach, it rang a bell with me because it would kind of take what you and I do in the Gracie Jiu-Jitsu realm, and then it would focus that same effort for a particular task, or it would then take what we've gone with and then continue on with it. Kind of like how if you start big and you start to focus in to a certain point. And that's something that me as an individual, I'm completely ignorant of that. And it was kind of fascinating with you kind of telling me what you do. And I can see why you gravitate toward the Rickson Gracie type jiu-jitsu or the self-defense type jiu-jitsu versus the sports stuff, because the sports stuff, there seems to be no relation to what you do, whereas the Gracie Jiu-Jitsu, a lot of them are foundational type principles that work perfectly because what you do segues from the Jiu-Jitsu. Is that my correct assessment?
Oh, absolutely. And if you consider like some principles of Gracie Jiu-Jitsu as Master Rickson has, like the importance of base. And then you extrapolate that to, okay, I'm not just fighting this one individual. I'm dealing with one individual, but all his friends are there. If you're in a situation like that where there's multiple opponents or there's possibility of weapons there, and you all of a sudden you lose your base and you don't know how to recover that, then your problem just multiplies exponentially very quickly. So those basic principles of jiu-jitsu need to be present there, because the importance of those principles, again, extrapolating it to the situations where my students specifically and the ones that I teach, when I go teach police departments and stuff like that, those principles need to be present constantly, because the moment the fight becomes, it's not just me dealing with one person, now I'm dealing with a bunch of people, and I may have to engage with one or disengage from one and deal with another. If those solid basic foundations aren't there, like how to get up from the ground and things like that, then I'm just in a world of hurt.
Yeah, I was just kind of thinking about a story that I remember about Rickson and Royler. I can't remember who told it to me. It might have been Grandmaster Housen years ago, about how a young Royler and Rickson were in a club and somehow ended up in trouble and were basically surrounded by a bunch of guys. And I told you this story as well. And Rickson just told Royler to look for the gap between the smaller guy. The smaller guys just kind of just penetrate that gap and get out of the circle. And you had then mentioned what?
So we talked about how you can be in a worst case scenario position and the gap isn't visible yet. So you have to be able to survive the first few seconds of whatever the heck is going on and to find that gap. That gap's very important. And you want to put yourself in a position, once you find that gap, to where maybe you just want, let's say you're facing four guys. You want to put yourself in a position where only one of those guys, if anything, has access to you, or maybe one or two of those guys have access to you. The problem is, it's simple to state that, but then finding that gap and being able to move through that gap, if you don't have the other principle, like how to base yourself properly, how to defend yourself from incoming blows, you might get stuck in that hole. And that's what you might get stuck in that no man's land where you're, surrounded by, four or more people. And, if you learn some basic skills to survive those first few seconds that you're in there and then learn how to find that gap, that would be ideal.
I've always been of the mindset, and that's why I've always had an internal conflict with a lot of other the stand-up martial arts, because they'd always say, well, you can fight on the ground, but how do you deal with multiple attackers? And my thought was always, if you can't deal with one of me, what makes you think you can deal with four of me? And at the same time, the way they would train is their multiple attackers they'd be surrounded by 10 guys, and they're in the middle, and they're fighting people who are coming to hit them one at a time. So what they're really doing is they're just doing multiple rounds with one person. They're not getting mobbed, where all of them just collapse on them at one time, or in this case four, all jump on you at one time. It's a skill set that I don't think they learn, because people come at them one at a time. Sure, you can do that, but when they all mob you at once, so that's why I've always been kind of skeptical about all these people who say, how to deal with multiple attackers. But when you had shown me a little bit of what you do, it made perfect sense about, how you approach it, because the jiu-jitsu concepts work in there, like how to connect, how to make your weight now put on your opponent's weight, and you're showing me how to shift people around to protect yourself from others people. I mean, granted, it's going to be a crappy situation no matter how you look at it, but it was just it kind of made sense to me. And it's the first time ever, really, other than having getting to use a weapon, because a weapon is an equalizer. Whether it be a knife or a gun or something like that, but without the the hand-to-hand combat, just from the way you mentioned to me, it actually did kind of strike a chord with me, and it's something Dave and I were kind of talking about quickly the last time I saw him, and you as well. Also, so I think that's a good thing for people to ask you about as well at some point in time if they want to, because that's your expertise. Also, you travel around a lot. Why don't you kind of tell us about that as well?
Yes, sir. So I teach as part of my own business and the association with Defense Lab. I travel to Trinidad and Tobago or to the UK and all across the states, teaching the Defense Lab tactical system and some of my defensive tactics courses that I teach. And basically that's what I've done since I started in 2000, working for a different company, doing it during my vacation time, etc. And then I started my own company in 2010 as well.
So you've been doing this for a long time.
Yeah, well, before that, I was doing it in, I was teaching my police department. I was in the police department, so I was an instructor and in the defense department. And also when I was in the Navy, I was teaching defensive tactics for my security guys. So,
and that's an important thing as well, because how big we are on teachers. You have practitioners, and you have practitioners that are also teachers. A lot of times what people will do, especially a guy who wants to own his own school, he'll train at a school, he'll get up to a certain proficiency level as a practitioner, and then say, okay, I'm a black belt, I'm going to now jump out and I'm going to run my own school. Or you have guys that start off as blue belts and decide they want to run their own school, but without having gone through any kind of teacher training and how to be a teacher. And you've been doing this for years at various at all your various positions in the past. And so, teaching is one thing, but having the art to teach is something else. And So you've already got that part down. Now you've been very diligent in your absorbing and grabbing of the knowledge that we have. In fact, you've been already hit to Texas, what, 3 times now?
3 times, yep.
You've been here 3 times.
And then you guys came down.
In 4 months. You've been here 3 times in 4 months, and then we came out to visit you in your studio back in, I want to say July. I can't remember anymore. It
was August 21st, I believe.
August, you've got the date. I like that.
It's like July or August, yeah.
Yeah, it was August, and in fact, some of the footage that we have on our Patreon channel happened at your studio. It's a great facility, and if you're, how many minutes south of Tucson are you?
So we're about an hour and 15 minutes south of Tucson. We're a military town. It's where Fort Huachuca is, and that's why most of my students are military guys or Border Patrol agents. We're close to the border as well. That's why I have the Border Patrol agents training here. So
before I forget, why don't you go ahead and give your information out? And what we'll do is we'll also put it in the comments below as well. Why don't you kind of just give it out so people can. So
the name's Tony Torres. The phone number is 520-236-2436. You can find the school right now we're rebuilding the website right now, but you can find us on Facebook under 3 different names. I have 3 different pages for the school. We have Functional Edge MMA, or Functional Edge Mixed Martial Arts, Defense Lab Sierra Vista, and Defense Lab Tactical. So any 3 of those pages will have information about the school.
And if I'm not mistaken, the Defense in Defense Labs is spelled with a C, not with an S, correct?
Correct. It's spelled with a C. It's a British company. That's where it started. So they spelled defense with a C. DEFENCE.
Now, are you open to running a combat jiu-jitsu seminar while you're doing a trip for Defense Labs, or is that something you need to do separately? So if, let's say you're going to be spending a week training a particular police department, will you be open to also then piggybacking a combat jiu-jitsu seminar on top of that?
Absolutely. As long as I have your permission to do that, and you believe that I'm trustworthy enough to at a purple belt level show guys some of the stuff that I've been learning from you guys, I can absolutely do that.
Okay. I just want to just kind of let people know that you do travel as well, and and guys, I just kind of want to let you know that Tony has been going through the modules on our curriculum here, and he's been progressing through at a very fast pace. But that's not because I'm trying to progress him through. I'm giving as much as he can absorb, and he can absorb a lot. And the reason is because his background is in self-defense. His background is not in competition. So self-defense principles are not original to Gracie Jiu-Jitsu. True self-defense principles actually cut across martial arts, right? They're martial arts, and a punch is a punch is a punch, right? There's no, one martial art has a better way to punch. It's an effective punch is an effective punch. The same thing with base. Rickson Gracie didn't invent base. He just merely seems to have rediscovered it for jiu-jitsu, or maybe the first to put it into jiu-jitsu. I don't know what it is. But a lot of the stuff, the self-defense curriculum, as well as a ground curriculum, a lot of it Tony already knows. And it's just a matter of fine-tuning it and getting it to where we want it to be. And like I mentioned to you, I've already seen Tony 4 times in the last 3 or 4 months, and every time I see him, he's gotten more and more and more of a command of everything that I've taught him. And the same with what Dave has taught him as well. So you can feel confident that if I send Tony out to you, that you will be learning what we're teaching here at Combat Jiu-Jitsu. So that's just kind of why I wanted to clear that one up. So I want you, if you are anywhere near him in Arizona, being that he's pretty much right in the middle between Dave in SoCal and me in Dallas, Texas, find a way to stop by. And especially if you're military guys, Tony's students are active duty guys, whether they be law enforcement, border patrol, or in the Army. And I've met his guys, and they're a great bunch of guys. Tony is an awesome guy, otherwise he would not be affiliated with us. And he is somebody you definitely want to learn under. So if you cannot make it to Dallas, if you cannot make it to SoCal, you want to make it out to, if you're in the area, anywhere near him, you want to go and see him. You got any last things that you want to share with everyone?
Anybody is always welcome to come train with us. If you're here or if you see me and you have some questions, feel free to ask, and I'll be more than happy to help you train, help you with whatever I can.